What if your belly fat has already started to disappear, even though the mirror tells you something different every morning? What if your body has already switched to fat burning, but you can't see it yet because the most important changes are happening deep inside? Most people believe fat loss has to be visible, a smaller number on the scale, a flatter stomach in the mirror. But this exact expectation causes many people to give up far too early, because belly fat doesn't disappear first where you can see it. It disappears first where you can feel it, in hormones, in metabolism, in the way the body uses energy. When these signals are ignored, real progress is mistaken for stagnation. And that is the biggest mistake in fat loss. This video is not about miracle diets, not about fast numbers, but about 7 scientific signs that your belly fat is already melting, even if you can't see it yet. To understand why these signs are so important, you first have to understand what belly fat really is. Belly fat is not just stored energy, especially so-called visceral fat, the fat that settles deep in the abdominal cavity around the liver, intestines, and pancreas, is hormonally active, inflammatory, and closely linked to insulin, stress, and metabolic diseases. Studies show that a large portion of the adult population already carries too much visceral fat, often without knowing it, because you don't necessarily see this fat, and you don't feel it right away either. And this is exactly where the problem lies. The body begins breaking down this dangerous fat first, not the fat under the skin, not the padding on hips or thighs, but the fat that burdens the organs and disrupts metabolism. But this process happens quietly, without applause, without visible changes in the mirror. Meanwhile, insulin levels drop. The liver slowly shifts from using sugar to using fat and ketones. Metabolism becomes more flexible. Researchers call this moment the metabolic switching point, the point at which the body stops constantly demanding new energy and begins releasing stored energy. And from this point on, the signals many people overlook begin. Signals that have nothing to do with discipline, nothing to do with willpower, but with biology. And the first of these signals does not appear in the mirror, but in the mind. The first sign is subtle, so subtle that many people don't even recognize it as progress. It's not an empty stomach, not a growling belly, but something else. Suddenly, there is less constant hunger, less urge to snack, less of that restless feeling that the body needs an immediate refill. Especially cravings for sugar, for snacks, for quick energy begin to quiet down. This is no coincidence, because at this moment, insulin levels begin to fall. Insulin is the hormone that decides whether fat is stored or released. As long as insulin remains high, belly fat is practically locked away, like a safe whose code no one knows. But as soon as eating pauses become longer, or meals become metabolically calmer, this safe slowly begins to open. The body no longer needs to constantly pull energy from the bloodstream. Instead, it taps into stored reserves. Researchers describe this state as the beginning of metabolic flexibility, the ability to switch between burning sugar and fat. And this is exactly where many people make a crucial mistake. They interpret the fading hunger not as a sign of fat loss, but as something they need to fight, when in fact, it is one of the earliest signals that the body is beginning to mobilize belly fat, not visible, but measurable and biologically clear. But hunger is only the first signal. The second sign initially feels uncomfortable to many and is therefore often misunderstood. The second sign seems contradictory at first glance. Many people are even alarmed when they notice it. They feel cold more quickly than before, especially in the hands, feet, or in the evening, sometimes even in situations where they used to feel completely normal. But this exact sensation is often a sign that the body has begun to redistribute energy differently. When insulin drops and fat mobilization begins, priorities within the body shift. Warmth for the skin is suddenly no longer the top priority. Instead, the body protects vital organs, the brain, the heart, the liver. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. For hundreds of thousands of years, food was not constantly available. During periods of scarcity, the body learned to allocate energy where it ensured survival, not comfort. This slight feeling of cold is therefore not a sign of weakness. It is an indication that metabolism is beginning to tap into stored energy. What's important? This sensation is usually temporary, as the body becomes more efficient at burning fat and uses ketones as a stable energy source. Temperature regulation normalizes again. But those who misinterpret this signal often return at this very moment to constant eating, interrupting the process that has just begun. While hands get colder on the outside, something decisive is happening inside. The body begins to distribute energy more evenly, and that shows up in the third sign, often at night when no one is watching. The third sign often appears when the body works unseen, during sleep. Many people suddenly notice that they sleep more deeply, not necessarily longer, but more soundly, less waking during the night, less of that vague feeling of being awake in the middle of the night without knowing why. The reason lies in metabolism. When blood sugar becomes more stable and insulin remains low at night, the body no longer needs to trigger stress responses. No adrenaline, no nighttime alarm. At the same time, the release of growth hormone increases, one of the most important hormones for fat loss and regeneration. This hormone works especially strongly during the first phases of sleep. It signals the body to release energy from fat and repair damaged structures. Sleep thus becomes an active metabolic phase, not just recovery, but rebuilding. Many underestimate this connection. Yet deep sleep is one of the most reliable signs that the body is no longer working against itself. While you sleep, it begins to clean up. And this nightly rebuilding slowly changes the sensation in the belly. Not visible, but noticeable. Which brings us to the fourth sign, a signal that many people only interpret correctly very late. The fourth sign has nothing to do with centimeters or numbers. It has to do with perception. The belly feels different, not necessarily smaller, not suddenly flat, but less tight, less hard, less bloated. Many people ignore this signal because they've learned to trust only the mirror. But biologically speaking, this sensation is crucial because visceral fat, the fat located deep in the abdominal cavity, is mobilized earlier than fat directly under the skin. As this internal fat shrinks, it relieves the organs, especially the liver. Inflammatory processes decrease, blood circulation improves, pressure in the abdominal cavity eases. The result is not an immediate visible effect, but a changed bodily sensation, a quiet hint that space is being created inside. Many describe it as the belly becoming softer, without really looking smaller. This is exactly where many lose patience. They expect external changes to lead internal processes. But in biology, it is almost always the opposite. First, the inside changes. Then, with delay, the surface. And while this internal space opens up, something else stabilizes in the body: energy. The fifth sign, therefore, does not appear in the mirror, but in everyday life. The fifth sign shows up not in a specific body part, but throughout the day. Energy becomes calmer, more even, more predictable. That typical up and down, tired in the morning, sluggish at midday, dependent on coffee or sugar in the afternoon, begins to dissolve. Instead, a stable baseline energy emerges. No high, no rush, but a quiet consistency. The reason lies in how the body supplies energy. When fat is increasingly used as fuel, a continuous supply is created. Fat delivers energy slowly but reliably. In contrast, sugar forces the body to constantly swing between excess and deficiency. As fat burning increases, ketone levels rise slightly as well. They fuel the brain efficiently and without sharp fluctuations. The result is mental clarity, less irritability, more endurance, not only physically, but mentally as well. Researchers refer to this as improved metabolic flexibility, the body's ability to switch between energy sources without triggering stress. And this flexibility is a crucial step in reducing belly fat. But there is yet another very subtle signal, one that only becomes noticeable when you begin to pay attention to your body. The sixth sign appears early in the morning. The sixth sign appears in a moment many people hardly notice. In the morning, right after waking up, the belly seems calmer, not dramatically flat, but less swollen, less tense than the night before. This is no coincidence. During the night, insulin levels remain low. No food is consumed. The body has time. Time to release stored energy. Time to mobilize fat. Time to clean up. Visceral fat, in particular, responds sensitively to these nighttime phases. The liver uses fat as fuel. Ketones are produced. Inflammatory processes are dialed down. The result is not a visible breakthrough, but a subtle signal, an indication that metabolism is no longer working against the body. Many people destroy this effect by eating very late or extending the evening with constant snacking. Yet the nighttime state is one of the most valuable phases for fat loss. And still, there is often a deep disappointment, because despite all these signals, something seems unchanged: the scale. And that brings us to the seventh and perhaps most important sign. The seventh sign feels to many like a setback. The scale barely changes, sometimes not at all. Sometimes it even fluctuates slightly upward. And this is exactly where many lose motivation. But biologically speaking, this is not a warning sign. It is often a good one. Fat loss is not the same as weight loss. While visceral fat is being reduced, water balance changes. Glycogen stores empty and refill. Muscle tissue may also adapt. The scale measures mass. It does not measure fat. It does not measure hormonal changes. It does not measure reduced inflammation. Studies show that metabolic health can improve significantly long before body weight changes. Visceral fat, in particular, the most dangerous fat in the body, can shrink without leaving major traces on the scale. Those who give up at this moment stop a process that is already moving in the right direction, because the body repairs itself in layers, from the inside out, from function to form. And that is exactly why these 7 signs are so important. They tell a story the mirror cannot show. When belly fat begins to melt, it rarely does so loudly. Not in the mirror, not on the scale. It begins quietly, in hormones that calm down, in nights that grow deeper, in energy that flows more steadily. These 7 signs are not promises. They are observations, clues that the body is beginning to work with itself instead of against itself. But caution is needed here. Fasting, long eating pauses, or major changes in eating behavior are not suitable for everyone. People with eating disorders, pregnant women, or individuals with serious medical conditions should never apply such methods without medical supervision. This video does not replace medical advice. It is meant to create understanding, not pressure, because sustainable fat loss does not come from force, but from the interaction of biology, patience, and proper timing. Perhaps the most important question is therefore not, why don't I see anything yet? But, what signals is my body already sending me? Which of these signs have you experienced yourself? Write it in the comments. If you enjoyed this scientific journey, subscribe to the channel and continue with us on the discovery of what is really happening inside your body.